A prehistoric world still alive. Imagine walking through a dense, humid jungle where the air is thick with the scent of wet foliage and the buzz of unseen creatures surrounds you. Now picture hearing a low rumble, seeing deep footprints embedded in the swampy earth, and realizing that what you're encountering might not be just another wild animal. It could be something out of the Mesozoic era. As unbelievable as it may sound, this is not the premise of a Hollywood movie, but a real possibility being investigated in the heart of Africa's Congo Basin. In the last few decades, foreign scientists and researchers have been intrigued by stories emerging from the Congo stories that challenge everything we know about extinction and the modern world. There have been consistent and often chilling reports of creatures that appear to resemble long-extinct dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals. Could it be that some remnants of our planet's ancient past are still alive and hidden in one of the most impenetrable jungles on Earth? The Congo rainforest, also known as the Congo Basin, spans over 1.3 million square miles and stretches across multiple countries in Central Africa. It is the second largest tropical rainforest on Earth, only after the Amazon, and is home to a vast array of biodiversity. Yet what makes it truly unique is how little of it has been explored. Thick vegetation, political instability, and harsh terrain have all conspired to keep much of this region shrouded in mystery. To many cryptozoologists and scientists alike, it represents the perfect hiding place for species that were thought to have vanished millions of years ago. Among the most compelling legends is that of Mokèlé-mbèmbé, a creature that the local inhabitants describe as a living dinosaur. But the tales don't end there. Eyewitnesses have reported seeing spiders the size of dogs, crocodile-like monsters larger than any modern species, and snakes that rivaled the legendary titanoboa in size. These stories, passed down through generations of local tribes, have captivated the imagination of modern explorers and inspired dozens of expeditions into the jungle's heart. This article is a journey through those accounts, a deep dive into the legends, the scientific possibilities, and the ongoing search for truth. It is an exploration not only of the Congo's forgotten corners, but also of the fine line between folklore and fact. Could these creatures truly exist in today's world? What evidence supports these astonishing claims? And what does this mean for our understanding of extinction, evolution, and the boundaries of the natural world? Let us begin where science meets myth, and where the dense canopy of the Congo may still conceal Earth's last living relics of the Age of Giants. The uncharted Congo, geography and mystique. Stretching across Central Africa and covering more than 1.3 million square miles, the Congo Basin is one of the last truly wild frontiers on Earth. This vast rainforest spans several countries, including the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Republic of the Congo, Gabon, Cameroon, and parts of Angola. Often referred to as the lungs of Africa, it is home to an estimated 10,000 species of plants, over 1,000 species of birds, and more than 400 species of mammals. Despite this incredible biodiversity, perhaps the most fascinating thing about the Congo Basin is how little of it has been explored by modern science. According to estimates from the Wildlife Conservation Society, only about 10% of the Congo Basin has been properly studied by scientists. The reasons are as vast as the jungle itself. The region's terrain is some of the most inhospitable on the planet. Endless swamps, dense canopies, uncharted rivers, and thick vines block the way of any would-be explorer. The sheer physical difficulty of accessing these areas means that large swaths of land remain untouched and undocumented. But it's not just the jungle itself that resists exploration. The Congo has been a region plagued by decades of political instability, logistical challenges, and limited infrastructure, all of which make long-term research efforts extremely difficult to sustain. Yet even in the face of such obstacles, efforts are slowly mounting. Advances in satellite imaging drones and remote sensing technologies are beginning to peel back the curtain. Conservationists and biologists have begun to identify and protect certain key regions, establishing national parks and nature reserves in an attempt to preserve this ecological treasure trove. But these efforts, while encouraging, are still in their infancy compared to the scale of what remains unknown. In many ways, the Congo today is what the Amazon was a century ago, a nearly mythical place where nature reigns supreme, and the rules of modernity seem suspended. It is a land where oral traditions still carry the weight of authority, where stories are passed down generation to generation and treated with the same reverence as documented history. For the people who live here, the jungle is not just a habitat, it is a sacred, live-in entity filled with mystery, danger, and awe. This very remoteness has led many researchers to entertain the possibility that the Congo might harbor life forms long believed to be extinct. Cryptozoologists who specialize in investigating hidden or undiscovered animals argue that the region's isolation makes it the perfect environment for living fossil species that have survived for millions of years by simply staying out of humanity's reach. From a purely statistical perspective, the odds of something extraordinary living within an area as vast and inaccessible as the Congo are not as far-fetched as one might assume. So while satellite technology may eventually chart every square mile, and scientific studies may finally illuminate the region's darkest corners, for now the Congo remains a realm of shadows, a place where the ancient and the unknown still have room to breathe. Mokèlé-mbèmbé, the dinosaur that never died among the most enduring and mystifying legends of the Congo, is that of Mokèlé-mbèmbé, a creature whose name means the one who stops the flow of rivers. This enigmatic animal is at the heart of many oral traditions passed down by tribes living along the Congo River and in the region surrounding Lake Tele. Descriptions of Mokèlé-mbèmbé consistently portray it as a massive elephant-sized beast with smooth brown-gray skin, a long serpentine neck, and a tail so powerful that it's often likened to that of a crocodile. Local witnesses frequently compare its shape and behavior to that of a sauropod, those massive, long-necked herbivorous dinosaurs that once roamed the earth during the Mesozoic era. The similarities are not coincidental. In fact, when Western researchers and missionaries first showed illustrations of various animals, including extinct dinosaurs, to the native peoples of the Congo, something remarkable happened. The locals immediately pointed to the image of a sauropod and said, "This is the creature that lives here." They had never been told about dinosaurs. They weren't regurgitating information from books or media. They were describing something they claimed to have seen with their own eyes. Many of these sightings are centered around Lake Tele, a remote and largely inaccessible body of water surrounded by swampy jungle in the Republic of Congo. Locals say the creature lives in deep, murky pools and underwater caves, surfacing only occasionally to graze on vegetation. It is said to feed on fruit from riverbank plants, avoid hippos whom it reportedly dislikes, and leave behind massive footprints with 3 distinctive clawed toes deeply pressed into the mud. Over the past few centuries, not only have local pygmy tribes described the creature, but Western explorers and missionaries have also come back with tales of encounters. In 1981, biologist Hermann Regusters led an expedition to Lake Tele and claimed to return with footprint casts, droppings, and even a mysterious sound recording that could not be identified as belonging to any known animal. Years earlier, in the 1960s and 70s, researcher Dr. Roy P. McCall, a former University of Chicago biologist, dedicated multiple expeditions to search for Mokèlé-mbèmbé. He documented interviews, collected sketches from locals, and returned with what he believed were compelling clues. Most notably, a photograph of a large, unclassified footprint that fit the creature's reported morphology. Despite the mounting anecdotal evidence, mainstream science has remained skeptical. Critics argue that no creature of such size could remain undetected in the modern world. But those who have ventured into the Congo argue otherwise. The jungle is a labyrinth of dense vegetation and near impenetrable terrain. Visibility is limited, and areas like the Likawala swamp remain unexplored to this day. As one local said, "We know the animals that live here. This is not an elephant or a hippo. We know those. This is something different." Adding even more weight to these stories is the consistency across tribes and decades. These people are not describing mythical beasts to entertain or deceive. They are calmly recounting encounters with a creature they believe to be real. Whether it is a relict dinosaur, a new species yet to be catalogued, or something else entirely, Mokèlé-mbèmbé remains one of the most intriguing cryptids on Earth, and one that keeps drawing researchers back into the green abyss of the Congo in search of answers. The Jaba-Fofi Congo's giant man-sized spider. In the shadowy undergrowth of the Congo's deepest forests, a legend far more terrifying than any dinosaur lurks, a legend that strikes fear into the hearts of locals and makes even seasoned explorers think twice. This is the tale of the Jaba-Fofi, also known as the Congolese giant spider. Said to be the size of a full-grown man, this arachnid is not just a tribal myth. Multiple independent reports from missionaries, travelers, and native Baka tribespeople point to the unsettling possibility that somewhere in the Congo's untouched wilderness, a massive prehistoric spider might still be spinning its web. According to local accounts, the Jaba-Fofi has a leg span that can exceed 4 to 5 feet, with a thick, rounded body covered in brown hair and a distinctively purple abdomen. These creatures are said to spin enormous circular webs across game trails or between tall trees, webs so strong that they can trap birds, small mammals, and even humans. Some reports even describe seeing what looks like small huts or burrow-like nests made of woven leaves, spider layers camouflaged into the natural environment. One of the earliest known Western encounters came in the 1890s when an English missionary exploring near Lake Nyasa reported stumbling upon an enormous web stretched between 2 massive trees. As he and his party approached, they allegedly became ensnared in the sticky strands. Moments later, spiders with legs over 4 feet long emerged and began biting the trapped men. The event left several wounded and traumatized. Another chilling account came from R.K. Lloyd and his wife during their time in the Congo. While traveling along a dirt path, they witnessed a large creature scuttling across the road. Initially mistaking it for a monkey due to its size, they soon realized in horror that it was a spider, an arachnid of proportions beyond anything found in modern biology. Tribal knowledge supports these sightings. The Baka people have passed down stories of the Jiba Fofi for generations. These spiders, they claim, are ambush predators. They dig shallow holes near tree roots, cover them with leaves, and wait. When a creature or person wanders too close, the spider strikes. Some tribes even warn travelers if you see mound-like structures or large patches of intricate webbing in the forest, leave immediately. Researcher William J. Gibbons, during his third expedition in equatorial Africa, specifically asked the pygmies about giant spiders. To his surprise, they were not only familiar with the creature, but described it in astonishing detail. The spider, they said, was brown in color, had a purple belly, and wove webbing strong enough to trap forest antelope. The level of fear with which they spoke convinced Gibbons that this was not a simple legend, it was something they genuinely believed and perhaps had witnessed. Yet biology throws up difficult questions. Spiders are part of the arthropod family, which includes insects and crustaceans. Their size is limited by how they breathe through tiny tubes called tracheae that deliver oxygen directly to their cells. As a spider grows larger, this method becomes inefficient. That's why modern spiders rarely grow beyond 12 inches in leg span. Still, during prehistoric times when oxygen levels were significantly higher, giant arthropods existed, including millipedes the size of alligators. If a small relict population of such spiders survived in isolated ecosystems like the Congo, it might explain these extraordinary claims. The Jiba Fofi may be one of the most fear-inducing creatures in the Congo's cryptid catalogue, not just for its size, but for the primal fear spiders evoke. Whether fact or fiction, the stories continue whispered between trees and carried by the wind through one of Earth's last great wildernesses, the Mokèlé-mbèmbé, the elephant killer. Deep within the tangled riverbanks and swampy corridors of the Congo Basin, local tribes speak in hushed voices about a terrifying beast known as the Mokèlé-mbèmbé, or the killer of elephants. Unlike the shy Mokèlé-mbèmbé or the elusive Jiba Fofi, this creature is not known for retreating into the shadows. It is described as aggressive, territorial, and fearless, an apex predator that strikes fear even into the hearts of Africa's mightiest land mammals. The Mokèlé-mbèmbé has been described by multiple tribal groups across Central Africa, most notably in the Republic of the Congo. The name itself reflects its notorious behavior, Mokèlé meaning killer, and mbèmbé referring to elephants. Sightings often occur near water-murky rivers, hidden lakes, and swampy deltas. This leads researchers to believe the creature may be semi-aquatic, spending much of its time submerged or concealed in dense vegetation along riverbanks. Eyewitnesses say the animal has a bulky armored body, a thick tail and a single menacing horn on its forehead, features that eerily resemble a triceratops. It's this horn locals claim that the beast uses to impale rival animals, including elephants that stray too close to its territory. It leaves behind destruction in its wake, with tales of wounded or dead wildlife found in areas known to be part of its range. What makes these stories even more compelling is the consistency with which locals identify the creature when shown images. When tribal members were presented with illustrations of various prehistoric animals, they almost unanimously pointed to the triceratops as the closest match. Yet most had no prior knowledge of dinosaurs or paleontology, which has led some researchers to wonder how could unrelated isolated communities all describe the same unknown animal if it didn't actually exist. One of the most talked about accounts dates back to the 1930s when a Congolese tribe allegedly killed one of these creatures. According to the tale, a local hunter removed the creature's horn and kept it hidden, fearing outsiders would confiscate it. Although the horn has never surfaced publicly, the story has become a staple among cryptozoologists, sparking numerous expeditions to recover proof of the beast's existence. Researchers have tried to piece together biological explanations for the Mokèlé-mbèmbé. Some propose it could be a rare and undiscovered species of rhinoceros, although the single horn and semi-aquatic behavior make this unlikely. Others suggest it may be a surviving species of ceratopsian dinosaur, or even a prehistoric amphibian whose evolutionary path diverged in the depths of Congo's unexplored ecosystems. Skeptics point out the lack of fossil evidence and photographic documentation, but proponents argue that the creature's remote and dangerous habitat, combined with the cultural secrecy of indigenous tribes, makes any form of data collection exceedingly difficult. In fact, many locals have said they actively avoid areas where the creature is known to live. They claim that where the Mokèlé-mbèmbé resides, other large animals are conspicuously absent. Elephants, hippos, and even crocodiles steer clear. Today, the Mokèlé-mbèmbé remains an unresolved mystery. Whether it is a relic of the distant past or a fabrication of fear, its legend continues to thrive in the oral histories of Central Africa. For the tribes who share their homes with crocodiles and gorillas, the Mokèlé-mbèmbé is no bedtime story. It's a reminder that the jungle, for all its beauty, still belongs to creatures far more ancient and powerful than we may ever know. The 50-foot Congo snake, a living titanoboa. If the idea of living dinosaurs and giant spiders lurking in the Congo isn't extraordinary enough, then the legend of the 50-foot Congo snake might just push the boundaries of believability. And yet the story comes not from local folklore, but from military personnel. In 1959, during the Belgian Air Force's occupation of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a startling account was recorded by Colonel Remy van Leerde, a decorated war veteran and pilot. While flying over the jungle in a helicopter for a routine mission, the colonel and his crew spotted a creature so massive that they immediately ordered a flyby for a closer look. What they saw was a snake enormous and alive, stretched out below easily over 50 feet in length, with a body thick enough to rival a large tree trunk and a head nearly 2 feet long. Van Leert estimated the snake was lifting its head more than 10 feet off the ground, clearly visible even from the air. Concerned they might be within striking distance, the crew chose not to descend further. However, they managed to take photographs which still circulate today in cryptozoology communities and are studied by enthusiasts and skeptics alike. While some have dismissed the sighting as exaggeration, many experts argue the image aligns with known proportions of the titanoboa, an extinct genus of giant snake that lived approximately 58-60 million years ago, shortly after the age of the dinosaurs. Fossils of titanoboa were first discovered in Colombia's Cerrejón Formation in 2009. This prehistoric serpent is estimated to have reached up to 50 feet in length and weighed more than 2,500 pounds. Its body was nearly 1 meter in diameter, perfectly matching the dimensions described in the Congo sighting. What made titanoboa possible was the Earth's environmental conditions during the Paleocene epoch. The planet was warmer with significantly higher oxygen levels than today. This combination allowed reptiles, especially cold-blooded ones like snakes, to grow much larger and metabolize more efficiently. With a warmer body, greater lung capacity, and abundant prey, such as crocodiles and turtles, Titanoboa thrived at the top of the food chain. As the climate eventually cooled and conditions changed, the colossal snake vanished along with other megafauna. Could a similar serpent have found refuge in the untouched ecosystems of the Congo? The dense, swampy, and unexplored regions of the rainforest offer an environment eerily reminiscent of Paleocene conditions. Many explorers argue that due to the lack of modern infrastructure and the sheer inaccessibility of large portions of the basin, an isolated population of massive snakes could feasibly remain hidden. Interestingly, the 1959 incident is not a lone case. Other military and civilian pilots have reported glimpses of giant snakes in the region. These sightings are often dismissed due to a lack of physical evidence, but when such claims come from trained observers, military personnel with nothing to gain and reputations to protect, they are harder to ignore. Moreover, some cryptozoologists argue that the recurring nature of these accounts, often decades apart and from unrelated sources, adds weight to their credibility. To this day, the Congo snake remains one of the most compelling cases for a living fossil. Whether it is an undiscovered species, a surviving Titanoboa, or a colossal mutation, it challenges our understanding of extinction survival and the hidden wonders of our world. For now, it remains an unsolved mystery, coiled somewhere deep within the rainforest, just waiting to be discovered. The Mahamba, the dino-croc that rules the river. Among the murky waters and concealed in the shadowy mangroves of the Congo Basin is a creature spoken of with quiet dread, a colossal reptile known as the Mahamba. Towering over modern crocodiles in both length and reputation, this beast is often described by the local tribes as a crocodile-like monster, measuring up to 50 feet long, with long limbs, elongated jaws, and the terrifying ability to pursue prey on both land and water. What separates Mahamba from the known Nile crocodile is not just its immense size, but also its behavior, calculated, violent, and unapologetically predatory. For centuries, oral histories have passed down accounts of Mahamba ambushing canoes, swallowing entire boats, and attacking humans and wildlife alike. Some tales even suggest that the beast can outrun a man on land, thanks to its disproportionately long limbs, an adaptation not seen in modern crocodilian species. In the eyes of the tribes, Mahamba is more than a beast. It is a powerful, ancient force of the jungle, a guardian of dark waters who enforces its dominance with raw prehistoric might. Despite the terrifying nature of these tales, many cryptozoologists and researchers believe there may be a grain of biological truth hidden within them. The creature's description closely mirrors that of Dinosuchus, a now extinct giant crocodilian that roamed Earth during the late Cretaceous period between 73 to 82 million years ago. Dinosuchus, literally meaning terrible crocodile in Greek, was among the largest crocodilians to have ever existed, with some fossil specimens suggesting lengths of over 40 feet and weights approaching 8,000 pounds. With bone-crushing jaws and teeth the size of bananas, Dinosuchus was a top predator, capable of hunting even dinosaurs. Mahamba's legend becomes even more compelling when considering environmental similarities. Like the Titanoboa, Dinosuchus thrived in warm, oxygen-rich environments with abundant prey. The Congo rainforest, with its suffocating humidity, dense vegetation, and untouched river systems, bears an uncanny resemblance to the late Cretaceous ecosystems that once supported these reptilian titans. If any place on Earth could support a surviving member of this ancient lineage, the Congo would be at the top of the list. Interestingly, sightings of Mahamba have not waned with time. Although modern-day claims are rarer due to fewer expeditions into the most remote swamplands, sightings persisted well into the 20th century, with the last documented case dating back to the 1930s. Since then, many local tribes have avoided entire stretches of rivers and rainforest areas said to be haunted by the creature. This collective avoidance is not based on superstition alone. It is a learned behavior passed down through generations who have lived in close proximity to one of the most unforgiving natural habitats on Earth. Some explorers speculate that Mahamba may be a species of living fossil, an evolutionary offshoot that developed traits suited for modern survival while retaining its ancestral size and power. Others argue that it might be a highly unusual and still undiscovered species of giant crocodilian, perhaps critically endangered or existing in such small populations that it has escaped scientific classification. Until hard evidence emerges, fossils, clear photographs, or a specimen, the Mahamba remains an enigma. But for those who live near the rivers of the Congo, it is not myth but memory. In their world, the Mahamba still rules the waters, a lurking remnant of an ancient era that never truly ended. The scientific skepticism versus indigenous knowledge. In the modern age of satellites, GPS mapping and instant information, the notion that large prehistoric creatures could still exist unnoticed in the wild seems impossible to many. The scientific community, bound by empirical standards and peer-reviewed evidence, remains firmly skeptical of claims involving Mokèlé-mbèmbé, the Mahamba, or the Jiba Fofi. After all, how could such large animals remain hidden from the global spotlight? Wouldn't satellite imagery, trail cameras, or DNA evidence have already exposed them? On the surface, this skepticism is logical, but it also risks dismissing something far more complex, the validity of indigenous knowledge and the limits of modern exploration. For centuries, native tribes in the Congo Basin have passed down stories of strange creatures roaming their forests, swamps, and rivers. These stories are not told as fantasy or folklore, but as direct lived experiences. When shown images of dinosaurs or giant spiders, creatures they had never previously seen, tribal members often point without hesitation and say, "This is what we saw." Their descriptions are often rich in detail, consistent across generations and remarkably uniform between tribes that do not regularly interact. In a scientific context, this kind of repeated corroborated testimony would be considered valuable data, but because it comes from oral traditions rather than written or recorded evidence, it is often ignored or ridiculed. The divide between indigenous observation and scientific skepticism is stark. Many scientists argue that the absence of hard evidence such as skeletons' DNA samples or high-quality photos invalidates the claims. Cryptozoologists, however, counter that the Congo is one of the least explored places on Earth. An estimated 90% of the region remains scientifically uncharted, its dense jungles and remote waterways making conventional research incredibly difficult. What seems unlikely in a laboratory in Europe or America may be perfectly plausible to those who live immersed in the land itself. Some explorers who have entered the Congo with skepticism have returned changed. They've heard sounds with no known animal origin, seen massive footprints in the mud, or interviewed dozens of locals whose sincerity and fear are unmistakable. These encounters have led many to reconsider the reliability of tribal knowledge not as myth, but as a different, equally valid form of documentation. As researcher William Gibbons once remarked, "These people are not imagining things. They are describing what they know. They live with it." Still, the Western scientific model demands physical proof, and until that threshold is crossed, these creatures remain cryptids, beings on the fringe of mainstream biology. But this perspective also underestimates the challenges of the terrain. Fossils rarely form in tropical environments. Bodies decompose rapidly in humid climates. Dense jungle can hide even the largest animals from both sight and drone technology. And local fear or cultural taboos may prevent the sharing or photographing of sacred areas or significant finds. In truth, science and indigenous knowledge need not be adversaries. The mystery of Congo's hidden creatures could serve as a bridge, an opportunity for both empirical science and traditional wisdom to come together in search of truth. For now, though, the two continue to operate in parallel worlds, one demanding proof and the other offering testimony. Between them lies a rainforest, untouched and unexplained, where the next discovery may not just rewrite biology books, but redefine the boundaries of belief. Why we still search, the importance of the unknown. In a world increasingly mapped, scanned, and catalogued, there remains something deeply human about the desire to explore the unknown. The dense jungles of the Congo Basin represent one of the last frontiers of terrestrial mystery, an untouched landscape that challenges the assumption that we already understand the natural world. While skeptics dismiss stories of living dinosaurs or giant spiders as fanciful relics of pre-scientific thinking, others argue that these mysteries reflect a fundamental truth: we have not yet discovered everything there is to know. And perhaps in our overconfident age, it is that humility which matters most. The Congo offers a stark reminder that the Earth is not as thoroughly explored as we might imagine. In fact, vast areas of its swamps, rivers, and jungle interior remain inaccessible even to modern expeditions. These natural fortresses, barriers of mud mosquitoes, disease, and tangled vegetation form an ecosystem so complex that even identifying and studying a new species of insect can take years. For larger animals, especially reclusive or nocturnal ones, eluding discovery becomes even more plausible. But the search for creatures like Mokèlé-mbèmbé or the Amela entuka is about more than just zoological curiosity. It taps into something primal, a sense of awe and reverence for a natural world that is not fully under our control or understanding. Every expedition, every footprint discovered or tale retold by tribal elders serves as a tiny spark of resistance against the arrogant belief that everything worth knowing has already been revealed. In that sense, these cryptids are symbols of nature's autonomy, its ability to hide secrets, even in the 21st century. The expeditions into the Congo aren't merely fringe adventures. They often involve experienced biologists, zoologists, anthropologists, and even military personnel. Many of these individuals return not with proof, but with transformative experiences, newfound respect for the people of the Congo, a deeper understanding of the land's complexity, and stories that defy easy dismissal. And while they may not capture a living dinosaur or bring back a massive arachnid specimen, they expand the boundaries of what is possible. Moreover, this pursuit fuels scientific advancement. The technologies used, remote sensing, environmental DNA sampling, drone mapping, are all cutting-edge tools that benefit a range of fields from conservation to climate science. In one case, a cryptid hunting team in 2018 failed to find the creature they sought, but discovered a new form of algae, highlighting the unintended benefits of these expeditions. In other words, even a search for the impossible often leads to real, measurable discoveries. Then there is the cultural and psychological value. These stories remind us to listen more closely to indigenous communities whose connection to the land spans centuries. They challenge us to be more open-minded in how we validate knowledge beyond microscopes and grant funding into the oral histories and lived realities of people who coexist with nature on its terms, not ours. Ultimately, the Congo's enduring mysteries are not merely questions about species, but about ourselves. Are we still capable of wonder? Do we still believe there are things we cannot explain? Or have we become too entrenched in our belief that only what can be measured is real? To search for the unknown is to embrace vulnerability, to acknowledge that the world is still bigger than our books and bolder than our instruments. And in the tangled shadows of the Congo, perhaps that's the greatest discovery of all. Conclusion: a call to curiosity. As we come to the end of this journey through the mist-laden depths of the Congo Basin, one truth becomes increasingly clear. There is still magic left in the world, not the kind of magic born of fantasy, but the wonder rooted in nature's refusal to be completely known. From stories of the long-necked Mokèlé-mbèmbé to tales of the elephant-slaying Emela and Tuka, from the nightmarish Jiba-fofi spider to the serpent of impossible length and the river-dominating Mahamba. The Congo is more than a rainforest. It is a living library of mysteries with volumes yet unread. These tales are not merely tribal folklore or the stuff of cryptozoologist dreams. They are accounts filled with consistency, specificity, and emotional weight handed down through generations by people who live within the land, not apart from it. What they describe is not abstract mythology, but encounters, observations, and lived truths that for them are as real as the rivers they fish or the animals they hunt. They do not call these creatures dinosaurs. They call them what they have seen. Only when presented with the language and images of modern science do the labels align, and even then the match is not forced. It is immediate, intuitive. And yet the world outside often reacts with cynicism. The scientific establishment demands fossilized proof, high-definition footage, and repeatable measurements before it will consider these stories anything but fanciful. But perhaps that skepticism itself reveals a blind spot. After all, how often has science had to catch up to indigenous knowledge, from the healing properties of traditional plants to the migratory patterns of animals? Native understanding has repeatedly anticipated scientific discovery. The creatures of the Congo might just be the next chapter in that legacy. What is at stake here is not merely whether a dinosaur-like beast still walks the earth. What is at stake is our relationship with mystery, with the possibility that we do not yet know all there is to know. In a world that prizes certainty and control, the unexplored places, literal and figurative, are shrinking. But the Congo stands firm, a reminder that there are still places where the wild writes its own rules. This is a call then not to blind belief, but to curious humility. A call to protect what we do not yet understand. A call to fund the quiet expeditions to support the tribal storytellers, to open ourselves once again, to wonder. Whether or not the Mokèlé-mbèmbé is ever found, whether or not the jibafofi ever crawls into the frame of a camera lens, the very possibility of their existence stirs something ancient within us. That sense that the world is larger, stranger, and more magnificent than we allow ourselves to believe. So what do you think? Could the Congo still shelter the last echoes of Earth's prehistoric past? Or are these creatures remnants of memory myths carved in jungle fog? Either way, one thing remains true. As long as we're still asking the question, the mystery lives on. Now it's your turn. Share your thoughts, engage in the conversation, and above all, stay curious, because the world, especially the hidden corners like the Congo, still holds secrets waiting to be uncovered.